Hello, everybody. It's Mark Attwood, and this is Adventures in the Cosmic Suit. If you're new here, there's an email sign up below this video. Please join the email list because one channel got taken down. I've been banned from all over the place. But and maybe today, hopefully not today, but I am going to be introducing somebody who, if you looked up the term resilience in the dictionary, you might find a picture of this guy. Please say hello to Shaun Attwood. Hello, Shaun.
Oh, thank you very much for having me on your channel, Mark, and huge congratulations to your success on YouTube. It's phenomenal.
I'm a tiny little channel. I can't believe you came on.
Well, my staff members have been talking about you for a very long time.
What? I didn't know
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Oh, hello, staff members. Who are they?
Stu is one of them. Shout out to Stu.
Hello, Stu. I don't even know these people.
Stu sent me a gushing email before I come on here. He already knew, just effusing about what you're up to, your mission, how great what you're doing. He's been following you religiously, Mark.
Wow, I didn't know. That's the funny thing about doing this thing, right? You get amazing stuff like that. You get loads of trolls and nasty stuff, but you get amazing stuff as well. And what made you start? Because I mean, look, okay, everybody that has never seen Shaun before, it's very unlikely, but Shaun's background is incredible. Do you want to tell the story in your own words, or shall I just read your biography?
So my activism started in 2002 to 2004 in the maximum security Madison Street Jail, Phoenix, Arizona, where I was being held on charges of money laundering and ecstasy trafficking. And before I got arrested, I thought, prisoners, lock them up, throw away the key. They're serial killers, predators, murderers, rapists, pedos. And once I got in the jail and saw the average arrest was like a black kid or a Mexican kid with a little bit of weed, and I saw that prison was the biggest house of the mentally ill. Half my friends in prison were soldiers, come back from wars, PTSD, nobody had helped them. Hearing the sad stories, even the hardcore heroin users, I used to think heroin users lived on the bridges. They go out stealing all day and they were terrible people. But then hearing the sad stories of heinous child abuse that they've been through, never given any help by the government, got on heroin to block that out because they had no tools to deal with it, thrown in prison where the trauma is compounded. I thought, my God, everything I've been led to believe about prisons being full of these most wicked offenders in the world by the media was completely untrue. Prisons in America are warehouses for the most vulnerable people in society. Yeah, they have got all those super predator people in there, the killers, the rapists, the pedos, who deserve to be in there, which the media focused on. But the vast majority of prisoners are just ordinary people who've gone through something, usually something drug-related, and ended up in there. Black kids, Mexican kids getting 2 to 5 years for a joint a week because they had prior felonies, convictions, and it just blew my mind. So we decided to do something about it. The guards in there were murdering mentally ill prisoners. My mum was worried about us exposing this. And we decided to do a blog. This was when blogs were first starting. My aunt smuggled my writing out of the maximum security Madison Street Jail, and through the visitation, typed those written entries up and sent them to my parents in Cheshire. And they published them as this blog, John, Jon, John's Jail Journal, not in my name because we were afraid of reprisals. So that's how the whole activism thing started. I never imagined what it would lead to. My dad started my YouTube channel in 2007.
So I just saw that in your channel name. Is his name
Derek Att? Derek Att? Yeah.
That's what I thought when I saw it. I was like, it's Derek. What's going on here?
Our Derek, yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. So the YouTube, in the beginning, it was all the blogging. And if people want to go back, some people challenge my story. The thing is, we kept written entries of all my jail journeys online, timestamp from when it all happened. You got people saying, oh, he's only done one night in jail and all this. Go back and read my online diary of most of my jail history, I say to these people. And then it, it was all in the written format. We started to convert it into video format. And as the channel got more popular, I realized I've got this platform now. So many wonderful people helped me when I got out of prison. So now it's our responsibility on our channel, especially to help guys who've been in prison, help them get their stories out there, help them publish their books, and focus on being on the right track. Because my philosophy is there's good and bad in everybody. If you focus on the good, it helps it to come out.
Well, I feel like I've been watching your podcast for years because the true crime stories are just endlessly fascinating, and I've loved all the recent work about Jimmy Savile because he's been a big part of my. Well, I think anybody in the UK really. We grew up with him, didn't we? And there's some brilliant work going on there, and it's also. I've not got one of your books yet, Shaun. I'm sorry about that. I meant to get them, but I've just spent all my money on getting the back catalogue of David Icke stuff.
Oh yes, brilliant! I would recommend Icke over my stuff any day of the week.
I remember your interviews with him a couple of years ago. They were fantastic.
Yeah, we did 3 podcasts with him. Since my great deplatforming, we've had to wait a considerable length of time before we could release the 3rd podcast, and we've only been able to release it on Spotify and iTunes. All of our Icke stuff got wiped off YouTube, sadly, but we are putting some on Rumble, we're putting some on my Facebook page, and we're putting our Jimmy Savile documentary out at the beginning of next month. 3.5 hours long.
I hope you go into a lot more depth than the Netflix thing did, but that was quite interesting.
Absolutely. Have you heard of the case of Claire McAlpine?
No.
Okay, so she was a 15-year-old who committed suicide who was groomed at Top of the Pops.
Oh, no, I did hear this on your podcast.
Yes. Yeah, with Savile, and she's a mum found the diary, and the police lost it, and all this stuff. Yeah, it's horrendous. So we do go far deeper, and we're holding the BBC way more accountable.
There's no way the BBC didn't know about him, and I think it goes far higher. And I'm going to say, there's words I can't say on this channel, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, he was right at the top of the pyramid.
If you've invested that many years in creating the biggest celebrity of the century, perhaps in terms of BBC and UK fame, then if it comes out what he's done, not just the financial loss, but all the careers that are going to unwind because these people backed him up over the years. So there was a concerted effort by the establishment, and also he had every top of royalty, top of politics, top of media. He had them all. He could just, and the police. Weekly lunches for the Leeds police.
I know, amazing. I think he was a direct descendant of the line that started with John Dee, Aleister Crowley, and all of those guys. Have you ever seen there was a brilliant documentary about Jimmy Savile called "Was Jimmy Savile a Wizard?" Have you ever seen that one?
I've not, no, but we have had some people on talking about Crowley and Savile, and Jason Horsley was a guy we had on recently. I think it's going on Rumble, that one.
Because that was his magic wand.
Yes.
Now then.
Yes.
It's all magic.
And the way he was just telling everybody what he was doing as well. Yeah. I'm going to get arrested on Thursday. I've got a case coming. If my real job is to be a janitor at a girls' school, all this stuff. Yeah.
Well, I think he was the tip of the iceberg, and I think you're doing great work continuing digging into this, because we must not forget this guy, and we must face up to it.
Well, it was the Epstein stuff that got me in trouble, because we had 60 million views on that content.
Oh,
yeah, and that's what caused the strikes. We had like 20 plus strikes, I think, last year. Main category A strikes. Yeah, so huge thank you to all the viewers for lobbying YouTube to get the channel back.
Is that what happened? They brought it back.
The viewers just lobbied for days and days. YouTube, it was trending on Twitter, and we got it back, and then it went again. I got terminated again, and then it got come back again, because what you got is artificial intelligence doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So artificial intelligence, I believe this whole thing came about because artificial intelligence, which is looking for QAnon terminology, and we've done a lot of SRA stuff. We've done a lot. I won't mention the terms because I don't want to trigger it on your channel. Yeah. Anyway, that terminology, we believe that the artificial intelligence picked up on that on our channel, and that was programmed to get rid of channels that were QAnon related. So it associated our channel with that. So I walked over to Google's headquarters in London, explained my situation as a security person. They went to the desk, came back, and just gave me Google contact customer service card. Yeah. But the viewers, God bless them, they lobbied, and we did finally get through to a person at YouTube online, and an appeal was done, and it was granted twice. It was granted twice, And we realize now that YouTube is a fantastic opportunity for people. It's transformed my life. I get to meet so many interesting people such as yourself, Mark, and I do appreciate the blessings I've got there. So we are, fully abiding. All my staff now have been trained in cyberbullying and what they can and cannot do. And it's a minefield, isn't it? The legal minefield. It's a community guidelines minefield. You've got to be very careful.
You have. I mean, I've worked on the internet for years. I've got a course where I teach people how to use YouTube to build up, because I think everybody's got a story and everybody's got a way. What I like about it is it gives you the opportunity to be your own boss, basically. And it's not for everybody, obviously, but it's a good thing. But going back to what I was going to say was, you just reminded me that I had an online hate campaign done against me about 12 years ago. And it broke my heart, and it made me withdraw from any kind of public stuff, because I was a public speaker in digital marketing at the time and business. And it was all lies, but people believed it. And so I've got a real empathy for anybody that stands up with resilience, as you do, against, because it's people don't realize how tough it is. I mean, cyberbullying really only started in the 2000s. It was a whole new thing, and it's psychological. And I think the AI is part of this, because the AI cyberbullies people as well as real people, trolls and all that kind of thing. You just got to be. People don't realize how tough you've got to be to just put up with that, because you're on a mission, though, right? So what I like about you is that you are on this mission, because not only are you the first Mr. Attwood I've met in a very long time, which is great, by the way. Not only that, you're the first person I've ever met who spent time in prison for making people cuddle each other.
Well, that was my belief while I was on the drugs, but getting into the jail, I saw the horror of what drug use led to. 90% approximately were injecting heroin, 2/3 approximately had hepatitis C, yellow jaundice skin, teeth rotted out. And once I sobered up from this cloud that was in my head of 10 years of drug use, I was ashamed of putting people on the road of drug use. And that's why I pledged to go out and do these talks to the schools. So before the pandemic, I was doing over 100 talks a year to the schools for almost 10 years. So I spoke to hundreds of thousands of kids now, and that's hopefully going to restore my karma. And on the subject of cyberbullying and campaigns, so there's been massive campaigns against me ever since the Epstein coverage. And even this week, like 30 minutes before my live stream, which I do every Wednesday, Attwood Unleashed, hackers out of Indonesia tried to take my YouTube channel down, and Virgin, the internet provider, contacted me and said there'd been a service of denial attack. I had spent 3 hours on the phone with them this week. They said this is rare, it's sophisticated, and it's not like clicking an email thing. They actually go through your internet provider and try and take you down through your internet provider. It's crazy.
Well, this happened to me about 3 or 4 months ago. I did a show about SRA, and I had such a strange thing, because I think it is it's more esoteric than just AI and computers. But I got my YouTube channel taken down last year just as it was getting going, and it wasn't big enough to petition anybody. I just had to start again. I locked out of Facebook. My phone got hacked, and I had to change the number twice. My PayPal account got closed. My Flickr account, what do you call it? Linktree account. Everything just got closed down. But I could feel it, right? I could actually feel it. It was like a spiritual attack, right? It's more than just the AI, but I do think the AI is connected to spirituality, and this is an area that I'm really, really interested in digging into and finding more about. What do you think about that? Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. At the height of campaigns against me, I've gone through very similar things as you, Mark, and I found it soul destroying. I maintained, and in my heart, I know what I'm doing is the right thing. So I maintained my position, and I've come through it, and I've had to develop really thick skin. And I'm reading a book right now. I think it's called Hunting Trolls, or Troll Hunting. And they actually interview these trolls, and they ask them what their purpose is. And they say their purpose is to either get their targets to commit suicide or to wipe them off social media and get them to lose their careers and cause trouble with their family members. And they prey on people that they see are going through things psychologically, people they think that they can generate a reaction out of. So it's been a learning curve for me, the whole thing, but it's a sign of success as well once your channel gets to such and such a level, or that you're over the target when these campaigns are launched against you. But they can be, there's some very dangerous people out there, and it's like stirring up a hornet's nest, and it's best avoided.
Yeah, well, when you talk about subjects that we talk about, you can't really. It's hard to avoid. I mean, you took on a gangland boss before, when you
That's yeah. I mean, that's the thing. You got, So out of all my podcast guests, I won't say this guy's name, but he was a hit man in London, and I woke up a month or so ago, and he was on his way to my house to get me, and all these. I woke up to all these messages, and I live streamed it saying, "I'm waiting for you." But yeah, compared to what the mix I was in Arizona, it should be all waters off a duck's back to me. But I think life always throws new challenges at you to get you to grow spiritually and to grow emotionally. So even no matter what things you've learned to deal with, something will always catch you off guard and trip you up. I think that's just part of the journey of life.
Well, because I've been through so much myself, the problem that I think the biggest problem we have, or the best weapon that they have, is that they just put the element of doubt into people's minds, and then that becomes that's the tough thing to recover from. But I've seen hit pieces on friends of mine that are just bullshit. It's when they make 2 and 2 to make 5. And then, there's certain people that I know that if I mention their name, I just get loads of vitriol all over Telegram or in the comments or whatever. And I just say the same thing to everybody until you actually meet somebody, shake them by the hand, look them in the eye. You don't actually know, right? And so I judge people on their actions more than other people's,
Exactly. And there's this thing going called the podcast war. So if the little channels are trolling me, it doesn't really affect me. But what happened was a big channel put information out saying that I was a police informant, saying that I was gay, saying that I was a P word, saying that I had nasty charges in Arizona. And those videos went to 2 million people.
Yeah.
So then you've got lunatics. There's always, even if it's though a small percent believe those things, small percent of lunatics, when 2 million people watch those videos, it creates a lot of blowback. Now I could handle it, but then you got lunatics, contacting my mum through, through social media, and then my mum's in her 70s. She can't sleep at night. I mean, how low and disgusting is that kind of behavior?
Yeah, it's mind blowing. But anyway, I've got 5 kids, Shaun. Right? Can you give a couple of lines for them? That's the wrong. I shouldn't say it like that. Can you give a bit of advice to them about drugs and getting involved? Because this is the biggest concern for parents. One of the biggest concerns for parents, especially the psychological nightmare that's happened for children in the last 2 years, has been horrible to witness, and I've been so incensed about it. I've fallen out with quite a few teachers over here about the whole thing, because what's been happening in schools is child abuse, as far as I'm concerned. Putting masks on kids and making them queue up and sitting in rooms with windows wide open in the middle of winter in case they catch the COVID. It doesn't surprise me that they go down the pub or they turn to alcohol and drugs and all of this kind of thing, because over here especially, there's nothing for them to do. There's no youth centers. There's hardly any scouts, or that's probably not a good place to send kids, even though I went to sorry, I don't have flashback to the 70s then, my very dodgy scout leader. Yeah. What do you say to kids? How do you convince them that it's not a good idea? Is it just because, look what happened to me, it's so bad, and I saw all this stuff? Because kids are very hard to convince.
Yeah, so I'm back in the schools now, and just to touch on what you said earlier, the teachers are telling me these year groups now, they're stunted emotionally, their growth by 2 years, the 2 years of the pandemic. So the year groups now are acting like they're 2 years younger than they actually are. And it's a real thing that they've got to try and address. So my thing from the get-go has never been to go in and preach to anybody. I try to set an example by expressing my story. So the talk they get is approximately 1 hour long. There's some time for some questions and answers at the end. And I go in and I say, look, here's my journey. I'm just here to tell you my story in the hope you don't do the stupid things that I did. And then I guide them through my early years as a kid, getting into the stock market, going off to university, discovering the rave scene, going to America, and having this goal, to be a millionaire by the age 30. But then mid-90s comes along. I make that fatal decision to abandon my work and get into the ecstasy scene. And then we go into the jail conditions. I reckon about 30 minutes of the talk is probably the jail conditions. And even in the schools that have got like the hardest to reach students, you can see they're all on the edge of their seats, paying attention when I'm getting into jail conditions, the consequences. My mum had a nervous breakdown over my situation. My sister had to have counselling. I'm banned from most countries of the world. I can't travel when you've got a criminal record. How hard is it to get a job? And on and on and on it goes. So it's a personal story with a lot of the consequences woven in at the end. And the teachers tell me the kids who stay behind at the end and are asking me the most questions are the hardest to reach students. Even had one kid, she was so inspired, she went on to do a criminology degree out of Winchester University, and her parents invited me to the graduation, had a meal out with them and everything.
Kind of reminds me of Angels with Dirty Faces. Do you remember that film?
No, I've not seen it.
Jimmy Cagney, and he's the hardened criminal. And he comes out, and the priest tries to get him to stop the kids following in his footsteps because they kind of hero worship him as a criminal. And then at the end, he gets set. I'm not going to spoil it for you. You should go and watch it. It's really good.
Well, there's a whole new level of criminality in the kids in the inner cities these days, and even the old school gangsters that I interview on my podcast. They say, when they've seen these kids come in and out of prison, they're just stone cold killers, gang members, and that's a function of the growth of the drug gangs, which is a function of government policy. That's why one of our mission statements has always been to end the war on drugs, take all that money, go after the bloody predators, the Savills of the world. But the government isn't listening because we're housing human beings. The private prison contracts right now are in the tens of billions a year. And people need to understand that for every person who's arrested, the prison in this country gets £60,000 per year per person. In America, it was about $60,000 when I was housed. There's no incentive to rehabilitate them. If it's drug and gang infested mayhem, give them $50 on the gate when they get released. Have a nice day. They come right back. As soon as they come right back, $60,000 more dollars. So it's an absolute swindle on the taxpayers, been done by our politicians.
I mean, it's huge business, right? Especially in the States. And
the war on drugs, mass incarceration, tens of billions a year in the contracts just for the private prisons alone. But there's hundreds of parasitic entities profiting from it with government contracts.
Amazing that you've been through that. Let's rewind a little bit because you talked about Q at the beginning. What do you think that is, Shaun?
What do I think Q is? Do you think this is going to cause problems on your channel, Mark?
Possibly, yeah, maybe.
I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't go there because the language is what the algorithm is looking for that we'd have to use.
Well, we could just do silly accents. Where did you grow up, by the way? Was it in Cheshire?
In a chemical manufacturing town called Widnes.
Oh, I know Widnes.
Which was Lancashire when I was growing up. And then Lancashire gave it to Cheshire. Cheshire tried to give it to Merseyside, but it remained in Cheshire.
Yeah, it's on the M56, isn't it, where you get that big chemical plant?
Yeah, M56, M62.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not been there for a while. I used to live in Cheshire in Woodford, which is near an airfield, which was all radioactive. So the really positive thing that happened to you is that, what I like about this is you had to face your demons in really extreme circumstances, and then you read 1,000 books.
Yeah, a lot of self-help, a lot of philosophy, psychology, reading the Stoics, reading Aurelius, reading Nietzsche, reading the psychologists, Carl Jung. My worldview was being transformed. Like everything I'd been conditioned to believe, I just felt it being stripped away. And then a week later, I'd read something else, and how I'd revised my worldview, that was stripped away. So everything, all my education, everything the government had told me. In particular, I remember I was in the max security jail, and my neighbor slid Alice in Wonderland, David Icke, Under My Door, and that was my introduction to David Icke books.
Yep.
And then I started to listen to him on Coast to Coast on my little radio set. I thought, wow. And reading those Icke books, oh my goodness, the details he gave about all the contractors, the military contractors, and Halliburton and George Bush, the Bush crime family. And ever since then, having interviewed David Icke like 4 times now, which was a real honor. I'm so thankful to him for waking me up.
He was a man. I mean, I started waking up about 30 years ago because I was in the military, and things happened there that didn't add up. So I left, and it was about, I don't know, 10 years later, I got given the Protocols of the Elders of Zion by a comedian in Manchester, and I read that and I crapped my pants because it was heavy, right? And then my friend died in 9/11, and around that time, well, just before that, was when this book was written, which is, everybody should read this. If you're watching this, read this book. It's 24 years old now. You read it. And when I was reading Ike's books, it was like I couldn't put it down. I was reading like 12 hours a day. They're so big, and you like next page, taking it all in. I'm immensely grateful to him. Did you go to the Wembley event, by the way, about 10 years ago?
I don't know if it was 10 years ago, but I do remember going to a Wembley event that was an all-day event. Was that 10 years ago?
I think it was. Well, I interviewed Gareth like the other week, and I think it's 10 years ago. Yeah,
I thought it was more like about 6 or 7, but maybe time has gone. Has he done multiple Wembley events?
I'm not sure, but it was an amazing event anyway. The one it was.
Yeah,
Gareth Icke opened singing "Remember Who You Are." If you remember,
he did a section on Savile and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar. Yeah. Perhaps
who else can talk from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m.? Unbelievable.
I know. And my ideal podcast guest, I just sit there and don't say a word, and I think he spoke for like 30-40 minutes without me saying anything.
I'm trying to get him on. David, come on my show.
Oh, that's the other thing I like about David. He goes on many shows. He says yes to many people. Very grassroots.
Absolutely, and that is so important. And seeing him out with all the rallies and everything over the last 2 years was great. There are a few questions I've got because, but I don't know if I should say them on the channel because it'll probably get deleted. So I have to think of something else. But there's certain areas where he doesn't go, and I'm really interested why he doesn't go there. And I kind of touched upon it with Gareth, and he said he told me the answer, and he said I'd love to be wrong, and I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. There's a lot of people that I know who believe in the white hats and this whole, this is a whole spiritual war, and we're at the end of this spiritual war, and there's massive transformation going on the planet. How do you feel about that without saying any trigger words?
So what was fascinating for me was reading world history, going back thousands of years. Books like Gibbon's Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, and just seeing the cycles of human nature versus technology and how technology changes, but human nature stays the same. So, for example, you got this 100-year World War cycle whereby, because of the increase in military technology, the casualties are greater every century, which doesn't bode well for us if there's another world war, because it could be at the nuclear level. So, yeah, it's fascinating for me. Just I describe myself as an observer of history, philosophy, belief systems, politics, and I'm all about yoga and meditation and people growing spiritually. Because for me, I was a materialistic person. I'd watched that movie Wall Street when I was a teenager, and my motto was "Greed is good." Yeah. I was in a stock brokerage outfit with a bunch of feisty New York Italians, and that was my introduction to the business world. And it's a warped way of existence. It's soul destroying. And when I see people now, graduates going to these investment banks in the city of London, when they're around 20 years old, by the time they're 30, they look about 50 years old, and their faces are hollowing out, and you can see their souls have been eroded by this human sacrifice. So it's energetically speaking, it's far better to become a yoga instructor or something like that.
Well, I was in the military and I had a similar moment where I was like, hang on a minute, I'm being trained to kill people. Hang on, who are we actually killing? And I was like, I can't do this. My soul couldn't do it, so I had to leave. And I'm not, I've got nothing against people in the military. There's a lot of people that in the military that have done amazing service across the world. But the question really is, who are you working for? And I met Prince Philip at St James's Palace, and I can still feel his handshake. Horrible little man he was. And I was like, this is the boss. This guy's the boss. What? I can't work for these guys anymore. I'm going to do something else. So I became a poet. Pilot's a poet.
Well, I salute you, Mark. You have such positive energy. I mean, you're just radiating it right now.
Well, I think it's really important that we do. I mean, we're living in such a crazy world. And, I've got, I lost my granddad during the middle of this. He got locked up and he couldn't understand why they were locking him up. So he started kicking off. He was a bit of a boxer when he was younger. And so they sectioned him. And then a week later, he was dead.
Oh, my God.
And then I couldn't go to the UK. I had to watch his funeral on Zoom. And I was like, this is, and look, most people in this world have been through crazy. I'm not a bleeding heart. I know people have been through much, much, much worse. And I just got this very strong, compelling feeling that I need to start talking because I've collected all this information over the years and I've had quite an interesting life. And I think that, some people get called to do certain things. And I've just tried my best to keep people chivied up throughout this process. And that's the thing that's kept me going is I got an email the other day saying you saved my life. And I'm like, that is just mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. Right. And I guess you get those as well. I mean, you've been at it a lot longer than I have.
The motivation from the people that send these messages all day long, we've got love and support coming in. And I feel so privileged that people are so interested in my story, in the stories of my guests, and how even you mentioned deaths during the pandemic. My best friend and he was a co-host who became very popular because of his honesty, brutal honesty. Wildman died during the pandemic, and Wildman, he was trying to get in hospital and they were fobbing him off. And I even put a video out saying Wildman needs help in hospitalization. But he cycled down and he ended up dying from multiple organ failure. He was only in his late 40s. Oh. But people still to this day are sending me messages saying, I watched the Wildman video today and it saved my life. And it's just Wildman talking shit and joking around. And just by watching his spirit, it's inspiring people to live in a more positive frame. It's great. It's absolutely magical. And I think we are blessed to be in this position and to have all these followers and supporters and that love comes in. It's a two-way street, and it definitely motivates me to get up in the morning with a big smile on my face and get back on the camera.
Well, I mean, it's a real blessing, and my opinion is that nobody's above anybody else, right? We're all working on this spiritually together. We're all energetically multidimensional doing stuff in this war, and this is a 3D, as David Icke says, this is just a point of attention. And it's just so interesting. I mean, I love listening to. I was listening to that show of yours this morning with the guy talking about the mutilations of the cows.
Oh, fascinating! Fascinating.
I love subjects like that. It's just mind blowing, right?
Well, if you want any of our guests, I've got my guest booker Ash will hook you up with some of our guests if you want.
Oh, well, actually, I was thinking that this morning. I thought I can't poach Shaun. There'd be two Attwoods doing the same bloody shows.
No, I'm a collaborative person. So there's people I've helped and that I shouldn't have helped, and this is how this podcast walk thing came about. As soon as they got sufficient followers, they just ditched me and stabbed me in the back. But I'm a collaborative person. I believe share your guests, share your stories, have your guests on as many platforms as possible. It helps everyone raise everybody up. And if you look at some of the biggest YouTubers in the world, like KSI, he came up through collaborations with other rising YouTubers. All this stabbing in the back and war stuff, it's negative energy, it's bad karma.
Yep.
And the people who instigate that, they end up falling under the weight of their own bad karma.
Well, I have noticed that in life. I mean, I was 53 last week, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm still here. Firstly, but then I look at the.
We're the same age.
Are we?
Yes.
You look young. I've got more hair, but you look younger.
You got more hair, yeah.
I wish mine was like yours because I've got one of those. I've got one of those monk things going on. I don't like it.
Shave it at the sides. You could do a Viking look.
Yeah, well, my mate did that. What you do with those little hairs at the top. My daughter's nagging me. Hang on, don't speak because I'm not letting you go on the YouTube channel. I'll be there in a bit. We're doing a live show on YouTube. 20 minutes, okay? Sorry, this is the problem on Friday afternoons. I have to give Dad's taxi.
Oh,
yeah, it's good. It's good. It's a privilege to be a dad. It really is. You know, we're both 53. I can't believe you're 53. I was 40.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right, my daughter's just thrown me off track there. So keep talking while I think of the next question.
Yeah, so we were just saying that we're blessed to be in the position we're in, and that's thanks to the viewers and all the positive love and support that comes in all day long. And unfortunately, I think many people, when they get bad comments and when they get criticism, they give that negative stuff way too much energy. We've all got the ego. I read a book called Ego is the Enemy, and I understand the function of the ego, but I understand how the ego is constantly poised to trip us up. So all this love and support comes in and we don't acknowledge it. One tiny little comment comes in saying something bad about you, and immediately you got to rebut that and focus on that, but that's something I've had to learn to avoid. Yeah.
Well, I did spend 10 years as a stand-up and doing the Edinburgh Festival, and it was so funny back then because you get all these great reviews and then one bad review in the paper, and that was it. You were wiped out. It just totally destroyed you. But it's just made me really resilient. I don't take on board the nice stuff. I do take it, and I'm really grateful. My subscribers are absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful people. It's just, and there's the occasional bad one that comes along, and I just ignore them.
Exactly. That's all you can do. And these in this book I'm reading about the trolls, they say that as soon as you react, they've got you.
Yeah.
And that's what they're searching for. They'll throw something at you every day, a different challenge, a different accusation. And the minute they trigger you and react, they've got you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does take some. So anyway, collaboration, I think, is the future of everything. I've philosophically talked about this in terms of business before, because I've been in business for a long time, and it is a real challenge. But I think, I studied economics for 5 years. I've said this many times on my channel, and nobody ever mentioned the fractional reserve banking system to me. And when I found that out, I was pretty shocked. Did you ever read G. Edward Griffin's book, the Creature from Jekyll Island, I think it's called. The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's about the Federal Reserve, the birth of the Federal Reserve.
So I started to read finance books when I was starting to trade the stock market when I was about 16. So I do understand the full history of financial institutions such as the Federal Reserve.
Well, you need to read that. You need to read that book.
I've not read that one, but I understand, about it.
Because that is the greatest instrument of our enslavement. Okay, it's just keeping us on this wheel, and the amount that have you done much stuff on common law?
Yeah, I'm familiar with common law. I'm familiar with debt slavery, interest rates, keeping the public, so that they're constantly making payments, and even things like how the weekend was structured, whereby get the workers, allow them to get drunk, get it out of the system, and then get them back to work the following day, and how the entire civilizations have been manipulated over the centuries.
Well, I think that's what they did to the drinking laws in the First World War in the UK. They kept them really short, so everybody just caned the booze, and they were absolutely hammered.
Yeah, and this is the sad thing, Mark, because when you do go throughout history and you see the pyramid of power, it's always been that way, and it's never ever changed. And the people at the top control the information that's disseminated to the bottom of the pyramid, and it's usually BS. And people don't find out really what's happened until centuries later, like we saw. They just tried to seal. What was that case in America where the Pfizer stuff. They're trying to seal that for, what is it, 75 years or something?
150 years, yeah.
Yeah, this has gone on since time immemorial. The only thing that changes is technology. And I've asked myself, what is it about human beings that creates this? Most of the people I know are just good, loving people. They just want a peaceful life and to be happy. Why is there so much evil in the world? And it seems to me that there is another part of human nature that is murderous, that is evil and greedy and selfish. And it comes out. And the psychopaths, like David Icke describes, are the ones who seize the reins of government, the people at the top of politics. And they're the ones who end up at the top of the pyramid by virtue of them being psychopaths.
Well, I did an interview last night with a guy in the States who said that there's not one single government on earth is actually human. And that kind of makes sense to me, because have you heard of Wetiko?
I've not heard of Wetiko. Does that reference include this fellow?
Oh! Who's he?
It wasn't a party, it was a work event.
Oh, it's him. Actually, that looks more realistic than the one that's there.
Doesn't it?
Yeah, more like it than the one that's there. I heard recently that one of his ex-girlfriends was saying to one of my friends, that's not really Boris. Why can't anybody see that's not really Boris? There is I subscribe to the theory that not one of the world leaders that we see at the moment is actually the real original version. Biden certainly isn't. What do you think?
Well, I do personally know someone who, let's just say, works with some world leaders, and the world leaders this person has worked with, I confirm the real people. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that does not preclude them from being psychopaths. That's what I thought you meant, because you could say they're not human, are they? When Ike says they're reptilian, shape-shifting lizards, then does he mean that they have the conscience of a reptilian, shape-shifting lizard? They are looking for prey. They will kill you stone cold without a second thought. That's my interpretation of what these world leaders are, and well, that's not human, is it?
Well, there's a couple of things there. Do you remember David Icke talking about when he was sat in the dressing room with Ted Heath?
Yes.
And his eyes went black.
Yes.
That's interesting, and that led me down the path of the Vril. You heard of the Vril?
Is this a spirit, an evil spirit?
No, it's like a small reptilian creature with a proboscis, or probably, if I'm saying the word correctly. This thing that comes out of its head, and it goes into your eye, and it takes over your consciousness. Yeah. And these things live underground. And Hitler was deeply involved with a thing called the Vril Society in the late 19th century.
We need to get you on my channel to talk about all this.
No, it's fascinating. And there's a place not far from me, which is supposed to be an underground base full of Vril.
Right.
And a cloning center.
Wow.
I know. Nuts.
I think we can get away with this on my channel.
Well, you know, I can talk about things without mentioning certain letters. But
good.
But that thing about what Ike said about Heath was a very similar thing that I had when I met Prince Philip. It was, and I also realized the other day that I've got 1 degree of separation from Mikhail Gorbachev and from Jimmy Carter, which means I've got 2 degrees of separation from Ronald Reagan and George Bush and Obama. It's crazy how small the world is. And what I love about these channels, the things that we're doing, is it just makes the whole thing smaller. But what we're doing is holding things to account in the best way that we can, and getting people to think about these things, because things like the cattle mutilation stuff that you did, this is important stuff, because when you look into the evidence, it's mind-blowing, it's irrefutable. What is it?
There's so many unexplained things in the world. And going back to what you said about evil people, being incarcerated for 6 years and being in the presence of murderers and some seriously evil people, they do have a black aura. There's a completely different energy and a look in the eyes to just the average, people on the street. So some people seem to be very different. Whether that's nurture or nature is debatable. And what what's happened to their souls over the years to create that energy. It's definitely interesting to try and analyze that.
There's a writer that lives not far from me called Thomas Sheridan, who wrote a book, I think, called The Rise of the Psychopath. I saw him speak about 10 years ago in Manchester. I bumped into him once in the street, but he's really interesting because he's also into the sorcery and black magic as well, because I think it's all connected. And this was all connected to Savile, and this is all connected to the royal family, and all connected to the way the world's run. In fact, there's a castle near me, Shaun, you'd like it. Aleister Crowley and W.B. Yeats used to go perform rituals in this castle in the middle of a lake as members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which is like, because Crowley was involved in loads of secret societies. He was like the head of all of them at the same time. Nobody's ever done that before or since, apart from John Dee. You know about John Dee?
No.
Oh man, you serious?
Go on.
John Dee was Queen Elizabeth I most trusted advisor, a bit like Jimmy Savile, and he signed his name 007. So he's what 007 is based on. 007 was shorthand for two-ball cane, which is massive in the Masonic movement. Two-ball cane is also cock and balls, which is also the double meaning that they always put into everything. And allegedly, he's the guy that sank the Spanish Armada 3 times off the coast of Ireland.
Wow.
using sorcery.
Wow.
Allegedly, he did rituals to pull in knowledge from these interdimensional reptilian beings, and they delivered on the promise of giving him the knowledge, but they overloaded him. He couldn't cope with the knowledge. So he started universities to pull in as many academics as possible to take this esoteric knowledge from them. But the price of this was young people, the blood of young people. And that was 500-600 years ago.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I've got to be careful what I say to add. I don't want to. I could add a lot to that, but I can't. You know what I mean?
We need to go down a pub and talk about this stuff. Come on YouTube.
We're on the edge of the community guidelines right now. I can see the abyss in front of us.
I want to talk about. Can't talk about that. Can't talk about this. So, how's the weather in London?
It's been lovely recently. I'm getting a suntan.
So am I. Got an Irish tan. It's got a farmer's tan here because the line ends there. Oh man.
Yeah, the reason we're able to talk about Savile is because he's dead. So it's not defamation. It's not cyberbullying. He's dead. So I've had to be very careful, reporting on cases of that nature. But because he's dead, we've been able to get some content out there on it on YouTube.
I just feel pissed off that his victims didn't get any justice in his lifetime. That's the only thing about that pisses me off. But I'm glad it's out. I'm glad people like you are dissecting it. I think it's so important that people look into this because they literally don't realize how big this is.
And the BBC, it's pathetic, isn't it? They've got a record amount of women in UK prison now for not paying their BBC TV license. Got these guys hounding me. They want to come in my house and inspect my house to see if I've been watching the BBC. How much money is being pissed away by this organization who protected the most evil, prolific P-word, in the last century in this country?
Well, they've got that fucking statue on the headquarters. I wrote it in a poem. The statue of filth on the BBC. These guys are despicable. It has to go.
Thoroughly evil, and they're desperate to stay relevant right now. They're the dinosaur media. They're fading away, and the platforms online are rapidly replacing them with all of the options and the truth, and the gatekeepers getting wiped out. Anyone like me and you now can just go on and say stuff, and previously we didn't have access to the public to do that. So it's there's these fantastic opportunities have come about through the internet to enable us to connect together and collaborate and form these great societies of people who view our videos.
It is funny how the internet has kind of been a double-edged sword for them, because I'm pretty sure DARPA created the internet in order to be another form of enslavement for the human race. I mean, if you look at Facebook's patents, you know, they patented the idea of uploading human consciousness to the web years ago. You know, and I because I worked in internet marketing, I knew all this stuff years ago. I used to start my talks with "Don't trust Google." People would be like, "What? What? What do you mean don't trust Google?" I was like, don't trust them. Why'd you give all your information to them, you idiot? But this is, you know, this is where we're at. I mean, this was all to train us for this time to give up our data and to agree to things like apps that track and trace you and to give all your information. I mean, currently I'm dodging the census lady. She's been around about 10 times. I'm not going to fill it in.
Yeah, I mean, data is the new commodity, isn't it? That's worth billions and billions of pounds now. It's replaced oil and the other commodities as being the most tradable thing. And in this era of, what is it, algorithmic strangulation, fascist fact checkers, these data collecting agents such as Facebook, I think they've gone to an extreme that we now could see get reversed. That often happens like a pendulum. For example, with Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter right now. What's your thoughts on that?
Very interesting. I mean, this is a time when you don't know who the good guys are or the bad guys are. The bad guys are playing good guys playing bad guys. Elon Musk clearly
007 villain.
Clearly married to a satanic woman. I've seen lots of pictures, right? And, you know, I thought this guy's bad. I mean, firstly, I've got a couple of issues. Firstly, what he stole the Tesla name. Okay, well, you know, Tesla was started by some guys that had nothing to do with him, but he stole the name of Tesla, and I always thought that was, well, firstly, electric cars are bullshit, right? You know, they had electric cars 100 years ago that did 1,000 miles. Now we've got ones with 200, you know, radius of 200. It's ridiculous, right? It's just another form of enslavement. So I always thought this guy's got to be bad. But at the moment with the Twitter thing, it looks like he's a Trojan horse. And I personally think it's because there's quite a few million of us out there waiting for a certain tweet to be put out by a certain gentleman who's no longer on that platform. And the only way you're going to get him on the platform is to get somebody to take it over that reinstates it. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't know who's good or bad anymore.
So really. It appears to be the lesser of the two evils then to me, because if you look at the present Twitter board and how 10 years ago, or however many years ago when Twitter came out, it was this free speech platform. And now it's the complete opposite. So it's horrible to be on these platforms and have to weigh your words and walk on eggshells, because you could just say one little thing wrong and you could wake up the next day and everything you've built up over for years is gone. That's a horrible situation to be in. So I'm hoping that from the extremes of censorship that it's gone to, that now we see it go the other way. Just like we saw in America, war on drugs, mass incarceration. The American public now voted for decriminalization, legalization of weed, things like that. We're seeing it go the other way. The public are getting sick of things going to extremes. They start to push it the other way because all the politicians care about is votes. And when the political winds are changing, public perception is changing on an issue, then the politicians will completely reverse on what they've done just to try and maintain their votes. So the people do have power to an extent.
Well, I think we are the power. You know, when we unite, this is what I meant earlier about collaboration. If we all put our differences aside and start collaborating, they're terrified of us. But they want to keep us where we are because this is a farm. This is like a prison planet farm, and they feed off us. They just feed off us. Like they're endlessly feeding off us, which is really gets my goat, which is why I tell people to keep laughing and don't be afraid to speak out and stand up in your power. I mean, talking of TV licenses earlier, one of the best things I ever learned was this sentence that I'll never forget, because I practiced it because I knew they were going to come for me. Last time I lived in the UK, it was about 2014, before I moved to Morocco for a few years, and then over to Ireland. And I decided I was going to get rid of the TV, stop paying the license. I knew they were going to come, and I waited for them. And I learned this amazing sentence. Everybody should learn this. The guy opened the door, said, "Are you Mr. Attwood?" I said, "No, he's in London. He's got a bald head, big show."
That's why they've been riding my ass for years.
It was me. He said, "Are you Mr. Attwood?" And I said, "I'm not answering that question." And I was shaking like this because it's like I'm stepping out of the matrix, right? And I had the phone there and I said, "I'm filming you to go on YouTube later in case you say anything dodgy." And then I said this wonderful sentence: "I refute your implied right of access to this property. Please leave." And I was shaking as I said it. And guess what? He turned around and he left.
Fantastic.
I was like, whoa, this is magic. And this is it. We have the power, but we don't realize how much power we've got. And I think we've got great times ahead. I'm an apocalyptimist because I also think we're the creators, Shaun. We create this universe. They know that. And we've got to keep being positive and working together because that's how we're going to dismantle this whole system. And that's what we're here for, I think.
Yeah, I'm an anti-dogmatist.
Is that dogmatic in and of itself?
I think it's almost an anagram of anti-apocalyptic. How do you say it?
I think that.
Is anti-dogmatism a dogma in itself? Maybe.
It's like going to the anarchist annual general meeting. Shouldn't happen.
No, love and respect for everyone. The world would be a much better place if yoga teachers, all of our politicians were replaced with yoga teachers.
I like that. That's the yoga party.
Yes, the yoga party. I went to a 2-day meditation with Sadhguru.
Did you?
And it was very intense in London. A friend took it to me when I was just out of prison, not many years out of prison. I was going through some things mentally. And I remember I was, when you've got, I think they had 1,000 people actually at one point, oming. I felt like I was in organ, the vibrations of an organ. I was inside an organ and people were crying and people were giggling and it was one of the most intense days of my life. And then I felt that ball of energy just rising up my spine. I was like, what the hell is going on? And I couldn't stop it. And I just felt it all coming up out my head. And when I left that meditation, it was pissing it down, right? And when I walked in there, I was in my sandals and my shorts. I walked out of that hall or wherever it was in front of all these people, put my arms in the earth at the rain. And I was like, Mother Nature, embrace me. Mother Nature. And I was yelling, Mother Nature, embrace me. I must have looked absolutely mad.
How many E's did you add?
None. And I documented the whole experience in my blog. And Sadhguru's people, I think they republished it. And yeah, it was because I've been constantly trying to work on myself, the inner journey. You know, you have to go inside and address your demons. If you're taking drugs, you've got demons usually, and you're self-medicating for demons.
Absolutely.
And even times when I took acid, I looked in the mirror and I saw my face turn into like a demonic face.
Yeah, I've got that.
So I've had this long journey to go deep inside myself with therapy, with meditation. You know, various people have come in my life to help me to address my demons. And huge thank you to Sadhguru. He was part of my healing process.
This is my Sadhguru outfit. Do you like it?
Can I put mine on?
Yeah. I was going to do a sketch. Happy Guru. What the fuck? How many men have wigs in their office?
Let me grab my gigs as well. Hold on.
I don't believe this. You've got a wig. Oh my god!
I lost my headset. Hold on. Here we go.
That is too good.
People are gonna screenshot this. We're gonna get trolled now, aren't we?
Oh well, you know, what a good way to end the week on a Friday afternoon.
Yes, you NWA mofos, look what you are up against. You cannot stand up to this. Look at the quality of my wig and my shades.
I think mine's better. This what I want. It makes me want to go Jehovah, Jehovah, Jehovah.
You're definitely resonating a Moses energy right now.
I can't believe there's two Attwoods with wigs in their office.
I got all kinds in here. Well, when we do
Anyway.
when we do our royal family coverage,
Oh, that's good.
I've got a robe as well.
This is my best friend.
Hey, Kermit, would you like to join me at my work event? It's not a party; it is a work event.
Hang on, we're supposed to be serious political activists. Oh God. Well, listen, man, I'm going to go and give my daughter a lift now. So, thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on. It's been an absolute laugh, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Spreading happy vibes.
I think so. Yeah,
so much darkness in the world. We've got to spread happy vibes and love.
Well, you know, maybe I tell you, I'm in England soon. I'll come and see you for a pint.
Come and see you for a pint and get your ass in my podcast studio.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yes.
You do that?
Yes.
Right, cool.
Keep me posted. But I'll have Ash reach out to you about coming on our Unleashed show, which is our live stream on Wednesdays.
I thought you just, I misheard you. I thought you just said that I'll have hash.
Ash. Wishful thinking. Freudian slip.
Okay, I look forward to that. Thank you so much, Shaun Attwood, for coming on the show. Great to meet another Mr. Attwood.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, viewers.
I think you're doing some amazing work, man. Keep it up. Thank you so much. Have a lovely weekend.
You too. Cheers, brother.
Take care. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.